So check this out. Psychologists actually say that when you enter into a relationship, you're not actually always who you think you are. We all kind of take on a persona, a role, and you might not be even aware of what this is. So if you're getting a lot of conflicts in relationships, or maybe you just want to know if, hey, you're the crazy one. I think we've all been the crazy one at times. We're gonna tell you what that role is. They call these the 4 attachment styles. In all seriousness, in this video, I'm gonna present to you the Bro Science Guide to Attachment Theory. We did the Bro Science Guide to Chakras. You guys seem to love that. And I say Bro Science because obviously I'm not the expert on this. There's 2 things that's really important before we start filling out this chart that I spent 30 minutes drawing up for you. The very first thing is that yes, most of these attachment styles come from childhood. That's normally where these develop. But for the sake of time and simplicity in this video, we're not going to talk about all the childhood stuff, which is important, but we're just going to go after what's current with you now. If you want to go a bit deeper, be my guest. Second major thing, one of these is good. 3 of these are not so good. Now, don't freak out if you're in one of the 3 camp. Don't identify with the label of it, okay? So important. I believe that your personality is not permanent. You're changing all the time. And so if you find that there are negative traits here, don't worry, you can change. Use it as motivation to grow and evolve. With that word salad out of the way, let's get into the 4 attachment styles. Which one are you? I tried to make this as simple as possible for you. We'll write the 4 dominant attachment types in that order. I'll give you a story to kind of illustrate how this would play out in a relationship so you can kind of see if this is you or not. And then we'll look at 3, not 20, not 50, but just 3 key elements for each. Don't worry about these for now. I'll explain them as we go a bit deeper. Here we go. Attachment style number 1. This is the boring camp. Secure. Nothing really wrong with you. You pretty much got it on lock. Let me introduce you to Emily. Emily feels comfortable in a relationship. She feels good sharing her wants, feelings, and needs with her partner. She's not freaking out about if her partner loves her. She believes him when he says it. And she's not worried about him leaving. They say that about 50% of the population is actually pretty good. They're in a secure attachment style, which I don't know if I buy. Or maybe I'm just in one of these camps on my experience. Here are the 3 key elements of this. Their worldview. They have a positive worldview of themselves and a positive worldview of others. They assume the best in both situations. Next is conflict. Instead of blaming the other partner, they're self-aware enough to ask for what they want. And lastly, their internal self-talk. They would describe their partner as, he always calms me, or she's always there for me when I need her. Not spending too much time here. Again, kind of boring. Let's talk about the messed up crew. Let's talk about the juicy stuff here. Let me introduce you to Dustin. Dustin is great in the beginning stages of a relationship. He's pulling out the bells and the whistles, dating someone. He goes after what he wants. But if he's honest, as the relationship develops, he kind of loses interest. His partners would describe him as having walls, being a bit distant, hard to crack. And when they bring this up to him, they have a hard time getting him to have an emotional conversation because he frequently uses sarcasm or humor to deflect from talking about what's really going on inside. Dustin has an avoidant attachment style. 25% of the population has this. Of that 25%, 100 of them are men. Just kidding. But all the ladies out there, you're like, I've dated so many guys like that. Let's get into these 3 key traits of an avoidant attachment style. The most obvious one is the word avoidant. What does that mean to you? That they're avoiding getting close to people, right? It's because they have a positive internal self-view of themselves, right? They rely on themselves, they're self-reliant, they're high achievers, but they have a negative outlook on others, or they don't trust them, or something happened in their past that caused them to have that. They got hurt, they got cheated on, terrible breakups, trauma in their past growing up. One of the downsides of having this, because you might be like, oh, that sounds cool, I'm independent, I got this on my own, I don't need people. They tend to have very few close relationships, even outside of a romantic one, right? So it's not just the romantic stuff that they have a hard time with. It's actually interpersonal relationships because they're so self-reliant that they feel like they don't need anyone. The second trait, this is how they handle conflict. The avoidant attachment style is notorious for deflection, meaning that, hey, you say, hey, that really bugged me when XYZ happened, and they'll try to crack a joke to circumvent the conversation altogether, or they might turn it on you and try to blame you instead. You ever know people like that? Like they're never serious. I think we all know the person who's like kind of the life of the party a bit, right? And they're always cracking jokes, but like if you're really honest, you don't really talk to them about the real stuff. They're kind of just like the party people, right? These people tend to have a lot of like superficial friendships, and people would invite them to things, but on the inside, it's a different story because they can't open up. The third key trait, the internal self-talk, how would they describe what they're going through? I can take care of myself. I don't need her. You're lucky to have me. I'm fine without you. All that stuff falls into avoidant category. Before we move on to the last two right here, which are super important, and we'll tie this all together for you. Is this making sense? If it's clicking, like this video just so I know. And now we'll talk about these four things right here. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you can't read my chicken scratch, I'll translate. This is low emotional avoidance. So these two have a low emotional avoidance, meaning that they don't avoid emotions at all and they're fine talking about them. This is high emotional avoidance for these two right here, meaning that talking about emotions to them is a bit tough. That makes sense? These columns over here, this says high anxiety and this says low anxiety. Their internal chatter, how they feel about the relationship, how they feel about dating you. Is he gonna stay? Is he gonna go? Who am I with this person? Do they love me? All that stuff. Low anxiety is what we just talked about. He's not very anxious because he's got a good self-view of himself. He feels like he doesn't need anyone. She feels like she's doing fine. High anxiety, this is what we're getting into next. Buckle up. Third attachment style is anxious. This is about 20% of the population. Let me introduce you to Liz. Liz cannot stand being single. When she is, she ain't single for long. Not necessarily because she's the hottest thing on the block, but she hates the feeling of being alone and needs someone there to reassure her. The catch-22 is when she's in a relationship, she's really unsure if her partner even loves her. Her relationships are always oscillating, it seems like, between super highs, where it's the best thing ever, and the lowest of lows, where they're on the verge of breaking up. She would describe her last relationships as toxic. And she's got a lot of the same traits, yet she self-identifies as an empath. That was a joke, calm down. But I was talking to someone, and sometimes the craziest people I've ever met have self-identified as an empath. I'm like, you are not an empath. As an empath, I just really think you need to get the out of my life, pack up all your and you're dead to me. All right, empaths, here are the three traits of the anxious attachment style. Their worldview, they have a negative self-view and a positive view of others. Doesn't this make sense based on where they're at in this quadrant, where they're fine with emotions, but they have high anxiety about the attachment, about if they're gonna leave. Do they really love me? In conflicts, this is very fascinating because they're in a lot of them, okay? The dynamics of this in a relationship, these people are in the most conflicts, or they have the most communication issues in a relationship. Not always because they under-communicate, but sometimes because they over-communicate, right? They have intense mood swings, the highs, the lows. They can be clingy, they can be demanding, they can have low self-esteem. And I think a few labels here that are common when I was researching this stuff and really looking into it. This is the camp, if you've ever found someone trying to be a fixer, right? You ever found a guy or a girl in a relationship, right? And they're trying to fix their partner. Maybe you've seen that happen in people you know, where the person's a mess and the person, maybe it's like your sibling or whatever, is with them. And you're like, what the heck is going on there? And then if you analyze it enough, it's like they're taking care of them. They're like a caretaker in this, right? Because it's easier for this person to take care of others than sometimes it is to address themselves. Fixers, savers, or they could be the opposite end there. They're looking for the fixer. They're looking for the saving. This is what I would call the wounded. Those dynamics play out and they fall into this category right here. Again, you know, about 20% of the population, give or take. The third thing, the self-talk that they have is, of course, from anxiety about the dynamics of the relationship. He'll leave me. She's cheating on me. I know she doesn't love me. I can see it, right? Now, one last point, and I was reading, I don't know where the source is from this. I'll try to find them, but probably not if I'm honest. Take it or leave it, but they said that women are more likely than men to be in this camp. Just like men are more likely to be in this camp, this tends to be predominantly women. Last attachment style, this is fearful attachment. The good news is that you're special. You're only 5% of the population, right? The bad news is that you're in for some rough times. And again, like I said at the beginning of this video, don't over-identify with these labels. I believe you can work on this stuff. Believe you're responsible enough to do it. Response-able. the ability to change, the ability to respond to whatever's happening. Remember, it's not always a situation that's influencing the outcome, it's what you're gonna do with it. That sounds oversimplistic, watch some of our other videos. Get you a little pumped up, get you a little inspired. So the worldview here, negative of themselves, stupid, 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 negative of others. I hate you. The conflict that these people have is definitely a paradox, because you see how this would play out? Like, how would it play out right now? Just think about it. If you don't really like yourself and you don't really trust others, right? Or you're anxious or you hate opening up, we need relationships. Human beings, we're designed to be in tribes. We're not designed to be isolated. One of the cruelest punishments they can ever do to someone is what? Solitary confinement. You know, I've never been to prison, right? I don't know anyone in prison, but I've seen some of those shows where they're like trying to throw someone in the shoe, right? And they're like, no, not the shoe. And they're freaking out because it's such a cruel isolation punishment right there. You know, a baby up until the age of 7, right? 5, 7, couldn't survive on its own. It literally needs the love from strangers, the love from a mother, right? To feed it, to take care of it. We grow up with this stuff, and so we're not designed to be alone. So the paradox here is that we need people to survive. And I think 2020 kind of proved that, right? Everyone in isolation there. The internal self-talk they would have is no one can love me, or I'm too broken to be loved. Maybe even all men are bad, all women suck, all men want one thing. Those kinds of sayings all the time are what these people have. Can't live with them, can't live without them. All right, so this attachment style, pretty much any G-Eazy song. These people have a hard time leaving as well when they're in relationships, right? Because they'll go back to them, or they view it as like, hey, you know, all relationships have issues, all people suck, and I guess the devil I know is better than the devil I don't, right? So I'll just stick this out even though it's not working. One thing I know for sure about all of this is that the best relationship advice I ever got was stop trying to look for the right person, right? Because then you'll end up in these camps right here, right? I'm looking for someone, right? I need someone to complete me, right? That's what people say. Stop trying to look for the right person and start trying to become the right person. Write that down, put that in your journal. Focus on who you need to become to attract that perfect or ideal partner into your life, because that's where that is right there, right? And so if you want help in like becoming the best version of you, which I call the 2.0 version of you, it's like you update a phone every single year, right? So it runs better. Maybe it's time to update yourself. This happens at the identity layer, your deepest core of who you are. This is unlike anything else that we normally talk about or like get to the root of. That's the real goal right there. So if you want to know more about our coaching program that's like designed over 6 weeks to walk you through that process sequentially, and if you feel like you're just watching random YouTube videos or reading books and it's like, I don't know if this stuff is really working or I'm really progressing, apply down below. If you qualify, again, this like isn't for everyone, right? So if you're like a student or you're unemployed or you don't have any money, like 2 nickels to rub together to invest in yourself, probably not for you, just to be honest. YouTube videos are always going to be free, but if you're willing to invest in yourself and this sounds like something you're into, apply down below, a simple application, and if it goes through and like we feel like we could help you, then we'll hop on the phone and just hear more about you and see if it's a good fit. I want you in the comments below, do you have any feedback on this? What do you notice from here? Trends that you've seen in yourself, in relationships? Post which one you feel like you are, which one you've seen. If you think this is a bunch of BS, post it down below. I want to know. That's it from me. Till next time, stop settling, start living. See ya.